everyone. Welcome to Just Angie. My name is Ciku Mutahi, and today we're going to have a conversation about bridging the generational gap. A bit about myself. As I said, my name is Ciku. I am a project manager. I do exports. I'm interested in things like data, policy. I am a youth activist. I think I would call myself that. But most importantly, I'm very, very interested in Africa's potential, mainly the younger generation. And so in this series, I'm going to be speaking about some of the gaps that exist between the older generations and the generations that exist today, and just with my guests, exploring how we can actually begin to bridge those gaps to ensure that we don't lose what was and also don't lose out on what could be. Today, we're having a conversation about the absent bridge. I'm sure a lot of you know that there are gaps that exist, especially with men. Women tend to be a lot more open to having conversations with their aunties, their grandmothers, etc. But with men, there tends to be a lot of silence and essentially not enough passed down. And so I'm having some conversations with a few men here, and we're just going to speak about what those gaps are, what the reasons for them, opportunities to bridge them, and what they individually are doing to be part of the solution. So welcome to my guests. You can start from this side.
Hello guys, my name is Keith Tupac Gatiramu, and yes, Tupac is my real name. I'm a son, both to God and two lovely parents. I'm a brother, recently an uncle. I'm a marketer, an entrepreneur, a founder, and probably the one that gives me the most joy or purpose is I'm the host of the podcast called Just to Kick It Is a Blessing.
Hi, that's a hell of an introduction. Hi, my name is Tino Tender Charles Mudiwa. I am a son, an uncle, a brother, and a marketer as well. I work in the design space. I work mostly with venture capital funds, and I am passionate about narrative and storytelling. A very underrated thing about IPOs is what actually makes an IPO pop is the story behind the product or the company you're launching. That's what really makes money, but people don't really click to that thing. So that's the kind of thing I do and the impact I try to make on the world.
Hi everyone, my name is David Mahinda. I am indeed also a son, a brother, an uncle to two very loving nieces. I'm also a Christian. I'm finance director of a company known as Kenya Getaway, as well as a startup of my own, focused on succession, where we pass from one generation to another. I'm glad to be here.
All right, thank you. As you can see, I have qualified men with me. To start off, a quick icebreaker. For all of you, what is one thing that a man in your life ever said or never said that shaped how you see masculinity? One thing, no explanation, just...
Okay, I'll start. What was never said is that a man can be more than one thing.
Oh, okay. All right, David?
For me, it was that men can apologize to their children.
Okay.
I'm really happy they've said those ones, so I'll just say, boys, don't cry.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. One more. Complete the sentence. Real men, ... and you can't repeat. Don't cry.
You read my mind there, but I'd like to say real men are responsible. And maybe just to give a bit of context into that is you're responsible with the things that are given onto you. And a lot of people could say that's also stewardship, but I think stewardship just looks at how well you deal with what you're entrusted with. Responsibility has also a response aspect into the negative things that come onto a man. And why I also say real men are responsible is because we judge men based on how responsible they are with the things that they were given. We only say he's a good father because of how responsible he is with his children. We only say he's a good president because of how responsible he is with a country.
I like that.
I would say real men have strong values. Ultimately, as a man, many times, even in a day, you'll be asked to stand for something. And if you have no North Star that guides your life, whether it be values based on God or values based on whatever you've learned in your life, then you're just going to fall every time. So real men have strong values.
Okay, I'd say real men speak. That's been a lesson I've been learning quite recently. But no man is an island, and you've been put on this earth not just for yourself, but to bless others and those around you. So it's your responsibility to speak.
Love that. Thank you, guys. I
You
didn't
see,
think
he
we
used
were.
the word responsible.
I didn't think we'd go that deep that quick. But anyways, last one. A belief about manhood that needs to die.
Similar to what I'd said before, I think there's this stoic nature about men. So having to be okay and rough it out, I think that is definitely something that needs to die. Part of that speaking is opening yourself up to be vulnerable, which isn't necessarily something that comes naturally to men, but it is something that is important to learn. Yeah.
Something that needs to die about men is the high suicide rates.
Okay.
I think for me, I think a thing of men that needs to die is something called the Lone Ranger syndrome. I think as Africans we've grown up in communities, but lately there's this glorification of self-employed, self-made, self-motivated, and I don't think that's an African thing, and that's why even the proverb is, if you walk alone, you walk faster, but if you walk together, you walk further. And even just to add on the power of community, even God in all his majesty appears in 3 persons, So I think that thing for Lone Ranger syndrome really needs to die.
Yeah. Interesting. So much to unpack, but let me go into the questions that I have. So starting with you, Tino. What unspoken rules about masculinity did you grow up absorbing, and how are they playing out in your life today?
Okay.
You can pick one, two.
Pick one.
Yeah.
2. There's many. So the unspoken rules about masculinity I grew up knowing is number one, this idea of there's one kind of man, and typically in our culture it is the stoic, silent type. If you are an expressive man, then you might be a feminine man, which is quite frankly not the case, right? Like I said, men can be more than one thing. There are many forms of masculinity, or expressions of masculinity, but you need to be, like I said, strong in your values, be responsible, speak. Ultimately, that's what makes a man, not how you present to the world, if that makes sense. So that's one of the really unspoken rules I saw. It's like you have to be very reserved, very stoic. You can't be seen to be having too much fun, or be seen to be too sad or too anything. You just have to be boring. Yeah.
Steady,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
Makes sense. And on that, you said steady. So, David, in your experience growing up, do you feel like this stoic expectation of a man created you into a certain version of a man? And are there things that you're currently now trying to do to actively jump out of that? And maybe before you say what you're working on, I'd like to know why, if you did want to change. Could also say I'm good,
I think similar to what Tino was saying, there was a certain version of a man that was glorified. So this man that is impervious to changes outside, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there's a difference between a man who is steady through the storm and a man who is just quiet. So the thin line between emotional regulation and emotional suppression, I think, can sometimes get blurred. So one of the things I'm trying to change is, I think at some point I did fall onto the side of emotional suppression, to the point where you don't want to show emotion because you want to be the steady pillar for your family, for those around you, but you end up eating at yourself in the process. So as part of the things I've been learning recently is speaking, as I mentioned, but not for other people, more so for me. Getting past that barrier, or that perceived barrier that you've created for yourself, that a man doesn't necessarily show his emotions or shouldn't show his emotions. I think you should, but you should also be very intentional about with whom and how you share your emotions. That, I think, is the difference. But don't take that to mean you shouldn't share. Yeah.
Wow.
And what's funny about that emotional suppression is that whilst you look good for some time, eventually those walls break.
Yes.
And then you're the opposite of what you're trying to be the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah. Tupac, I think you've had a lot of experience. Did you speak about your podcast? Sorry.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of experience speaking to men and just getting them to open up, getting them to see the world differently, challenging them to break out of this mold.
Yeah.
So from that experience, what are some of the things that tend to show up a lot in terms of what it is that men today are suffering with? And let's say the ones who have begun to break through that, what's on the other side? Or what have you heard or seen is on the other side?
I think the one thing that I've seen that is causing men, or from the conversations we've had or the research we've had, that's causing men to suffer a lot is an absent father. Yeah. So the role of not having a present father is causing men to really, really, really suffer. And the statistics are crazy. I've been reading reports both here and abroad, and when you look at the statistics, they are mad. Another thing is, even within present fathers, is the relationship a father has with his son. Sometimes the father might be present, but the relationship is toxic, or it's still that same masculinity. Be a tough man, be a boy, stand up. Yeah, so that's one of the things. Those are two of the things that I've seen. And yeah, I think that's where the problem starts. And then now along the way, the problem builds up into other things of lack of purpose, lack of responsibility,
Identity
and things like that.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is a father can be physically present but still absent. Yeah.
We have a lot of people who are there, but they're not there. And in fact, the other day I was doing something for fathers and sons, and I sent a poster asking people to help me find people who are willing to participate, because it wasn't as easy as finding mothers and daughters.
Yes.
Yeah, so some of the responses I got were crazy. Tupac, how can you ask me that? You think me and my dad are gonna come and have that kind of conversation there? Be serious.
Yeah.
But those ones were not really bad. I think the one that really broke my heart was when a girl told me that her and her friends are fatherless. And when I got to dig in deeper into that conversation, only one of the girls in that friend group had lost her father. The rest had just absent fathers. So it's not just a problem for the boy child. I think it's a problem for everyone. I just think the way girls are built and girls are raised, they're just a bit much stronger with dealing with that situation.
I would actually say I think we're only stronger because of the people around us.
Yeah.
Community,
our friends, our moms, our aunties. Having spaces to speak through these things is what has made us strong. I don't really think inherently.
And how intentional you are about
exactly having
addressing
those
those issues.
conversations. Yeah. That's interesting. So what, I guess, have you guys seen in this generation of men, hopefully your friends and the people around you, trying to do things differently? Like, what have you seen maybe some of the men, or are you calling out from what was and what's coming? What are some of the things that you're trying to get rid of? What are some of the things that were normal and are not so normal anymore?
I think I can start. One of the things I've been seeing and really enjoying to see is men being very intentional about friendships, and not the typical superficial friendships you have where you see guys, 2-3 times a week, but you've talked about nothing. It's men creating spaces where, as much as it might still be uncomfortable at the end, even if you've really not talked about anything for the first 2 hours, the last 30 minutes, it's like, okay, Sawa, how are guys doing? And giving space for men to be vulnerable. Of course, it's still not something that is coming naturally, but I'm seeing people be intentional about it, which I've really been enjoying.
Yeah. You mentioned it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
Let's unpack that. What's the discomfort? Either any of you.
I'd say it's a lack of training is not quite the right word, but training, right? We're taught to be a certain way, to be stoic, to be not too much, not, So I think human beings in general are emotional beings, right? And we have a range that goes from 10 to 0. And most of us as men are trying to stay between 4 and 6. So when now life is really tough or really great and you need to reach 8 or 9, you don't have that gear emotionally. right? That's what makes it uncomfortable. It's like you're trying to learn how to drive and just
You don't have the exposure. You don't know what that looks like because you
Yeah.
haven't seen it modeled. So you're almost trying to chart the path for yourself. And I don't know if using women as an example is the best because
we're different.
Yes, we are inherently different.
It's true.
I think, like, even to talk about the comfort, I think it's so ingrained in us what it meant to be a man that it's so hard to step out of that. And you know why I say that is even these days I see like my little cousin is a boy. When he falls down, I tell him, yo, bro, get up, be a man. But I know, like, deep inside, when I sit back and reflect on that, I'm like, Tupac, that was wrong. But you know, it's so ingrained in me to respond to a situation in that way. Stepping out of it is a bit uncomfortable.
I see.
Yeah.
But then now also not looking at it as you necessarily just going out to people when you're in times of need, but creating that space for your friends. So having them understand that they do you a disservice by not coming to you when they're going through something, and vice versa.
It's true.
Okay. We've spoken a lot about the things that we want to be different, about how it is that men have been told to be. But what are some of the things that you guys think are positive that we shouldn't lose? Because I don't believe that everything that was wrong. But I'd want to hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you're intentional about making sure you carry forward as you leave some behind?
I think there's a lot of positive attributes to that still be a real man, you know, the part of providing provision, providing, priest, leading, being strong. I think there's so much positivity in that still, and purpose. So I think we should still keep certain attributes of it. I don't think everything should just be discarded. I think we just need to sit down as men and say, these are the positive attributes we need to select going forward, and maybe these are some of the ones we can tone down a bit. Not let go, but maybe tone down a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
I think one of the core differences between men and women would be in terms of the balance between emotion versus logic. I know this is something I've been exposed to, but one of the things that I think men are gifted in is allowing logic to lead and use that to regulate emotion. So in that, you can still be that steady pillar for your family, not given to too much emotion, but still being able to come in, step into your feminine if you need to understand where people are coming from, but still provide that steady ship. Yeah.
I think the positive thing is presence, right? It's just how we're defining presence these days. Before, we're defining it as you're there for your family physically, you're there for your family financially, and your responsibilities stop there. So let's keep presence, but let's expand upon that definition and say, okay, your family also needs a protector, not just physically, but emotionally too. Your family needs provision, not just in terms of finances, but of, fruit of the heart, I guess. Yeah. I think that's what we need to keep and expand on.
Interesting. So what are each of you doing to push this agenda?
Okay, I'm starting this time. It's my turn. Okay, so keeping on presence, I think something that we don't value enough is being present for our friends, like whilst they're like in the room with us. We've got cell phones, we've got television, we've got computers. So it really makes me sad when I see like a group of people come together and everyone is just scrolling, showing each other a video and scrolling, and not really getting into what's in your head, but focusing on still what's outside. So what I am trying to push and what I actively do, I think you guys might have noticed, that I usually put my phone either out of sight or away from wherever I'm interacting with people so that I can be with people. And you'll find people tend to, even though they don't really consciously notice it, but they tend to open up more and they tend to be actually more engaged, and you leave an interaction with your cup feeling fuller because you are actually either pouring into someone or someone else pouring into you in a intentional way. So that's what I'm trying to do to push this presence agenda.
Wow, love that.
I think for me, it would be two things. First would be on understanding myself and my emotions better. So I actually went for therapy, which was different but very nice. I've been saying I don't think I truly understood the value of therapy until this season. There's a man I'm working with, but more just to understand my emotions in terms of expression. So that's one. The other would be in terms of having a Bible study where we have men come together, where you can speak, read the word, but then also create a community around that, where at the end people will share their prayer requests, which is a very vulnerable thing for men. So that's been one of the ways.
Well, then I applaud you for that, bro. Well done, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I think for me, I've been able to create a space, for men to have such conversations, to influence the next generation, to have men come there and talk about, almost committing suicide to running a million Kenya shilling, multi-million Kenya shilling entity, is quite inspiring. So I think for me, that's what I want to continue to build, a safe space for men to have certain conversations, and along the way, there's also other plans that we've been putting in place with, some of my friends, including David, to inspire now that next generation of men and to have these uncomfortable conversations. Because for me, I feel like vulnerability is a good thing that the men of these days have started. And I feel like the more vulnerable we can be and honest with each other, the better we'll connect and the better the next generation would be. For example, like I think for me, the relationship with my dad and I has really changed the moment that he became vulnerable. So this person I had put on this pedestal came and was like, look, these are my weaknesses, these are my challenges, these are my shortfalls. And I'm like, wow, he's just as human as me.
Yes.
So we pray that we can create more spaces like that. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned your relationship with your dad, because I think I know it's very different from many that I know. So maybe just give people a bit of some insight into what it was and what it became and what that did for you, like the difference. Who are you then and who are you now because of that?
Well, I think I had a very toxic relationship with my dad. Yeah. It was just provider, a bit of punishment because we were a bit naughty. Yeah, but everything was, we were running to mom, go to mom about this, go to mom about this, mom talk to dad about this. He was a bit of, maybe let's say, there's a bit of so much authority, but along the way, I don't know, there was some transformation that he went through and he became more of a friend. Like I'd like to say, he's even more of a friend to me than a father. And I think that's been so important because he's been able to guide, he's been able to relate more to me. I think you relate more to someone who's like you compared to someone that you're looking up like here. So I think that's what that, friendship has done. So sometimes I even sit down and I have conversations with the guy and I'm like, oh my God, maybe I think I just told my dad a bit too much, But it's a nice thing. And then I think it also shows the kind of father that I want to be. You get, so, yeah.
Interesting. And why is his vulnerability so important to you?
I think because in that you've been able to have honest conversations, and I'll give one. I'm not too sure he's gonna be happy listening to this, but I'll give one. So I've got into really dark places in my life, where I've gotten to the point of contemplating taking my life. Almost also done it, So when my dad listened to my TED talk, we went and had lunch, and we were a group of friends, and he was like, your TED talk really spoke to me. And then it reminded me of when I was in the UK and a girl had also broken my heart, and I stood on the in the subway contemplating to jump. And I was like, first of all, you've never told me in your life that. But the fact that he told me that, I'm like, damn. So I'm not the only one, you know. So there's a bit of comfort in that feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. You guys, you don't have to go into depth about your relationships with your dad. You know, you can or you can't, but it can just be maybe the male figures in your life. If you do have maybe a comparison between a present or a not so present one, names are not needed, but just the difference in that relationship and what it does for you, or what it would do for you if maybe there's no active example.
Okay, I think I can go. So I've actually been blessed to have a present father, and present in the sense that I have been able to speak to him. Of course, there have been periods, but as time has passed, we've gotten more and more intentional about doing that, where he and I would just go for dinner and catch up, and I'd fill him in on my life, he'd fill me in. So similar to what Tupac was saying, that vulnerability, being able to see your dad as a real human with emotions who struggles with different things, that has been really eye-opening, as opposed to this picture of a man who doesn't show emotion. So you then fill in the dots for yourself, which oftentimes you're creating things that aren't there, or you're placing him on a pedestal that makes him unreal, or makes it seem like that's unachievable. One of the things I've said is, you know, my dad is now 61, but by God's grace, if I was to be able to achieve the things he's been able to achieve in that time, I'd consider it a blessing. So I've been blessed with a true good example of a father. So very thankful.
You know, just I don't know, like David said, it's like, you know, sometimes most of the conversations people have with their dad is like, at your age, I was married, I had you, I'd already 3 houses. So,
I'd been number 1 in school.
I was doing it, yeah. But actually, my daddy showed me the certificate, so I'm quite real, so I can't lie about that. So it makes the guy actually seem unreal, because, you know, especially at the age we're at, it makes it seem unreal, because you're like, damn, I'm over 25 or something, staying still with my dad. You know, you have no maybe prospect and anything, so it makes you feel some type of way. But then now when he shares his shortfalls and weaknesses and challenges, it builds a better connection compared to the guy who was 25, getting married, having his own things.
And it now looks achievable, attainable.
Yes.
Also, when you have someone to walk
through
it with.
Yes. You're not comparing yourself to some ideal version you've created in your head. You're actually working with a real person.
To echo what these guys have said, it's at least for my relationship with my father figures, because you're raised by not just your dad but your uncles as well, your elder brother. What I've seen is maybe an evolution of my own my own perception of them, right? Because like you guys have said, I was idealizing these guys, and they were truly my heroes, as in superheroes, that fictional. But the older I've gotten, and perhaps the more respect I've gained from them, they've also been able to come to me with the chinks in their armor and be like, okay, young man, or actually my dad loves to say comrade. So, comrade, you know, there's a problem here. And I always know, as soon as he says comrade, okay, tune in, serious conversation. There's a problem here, X, Y, and Z is happening. I'm not sure, what do you think, you know? Or I've tried this before, it didn't work, maybe a different perspective might, you know? Or, you know, I'm getting old, these guys are young. It can be anything, you know? So to see that makes you take it easier on yourself. Like you're saying, like, because ultimately what we're giving ourselves is pressure. There's pressure to become a superhero.
Yes.
Right? But these are also people like you. So that's maybe what I've seen has changed.
And you mentioned something interesting. You mentioned when you gain respect from your father figures. That I think is something that's so important, because as you feel it, there's a way in which it just builds confidence out of you. As they place more responsibility on you, more trust, it calls out the greatness in you. So there's that relationship that's also quite interesting.
Yeah. And I think, Tupac, you mentioned at the beginning that a man's role, a real man also, you said is responsible.
Yeah, you said it again.
Yes, said it again,
Yeah.
said it again. But you also said something about him being a priest and him stewarding his family. And part of that is calling out the identity of his sons, his daughters, whatever that may look like. And when that is missing, you just have lost souls roaming around. Because if you think about it, God is our father. So he's the one who holds our identity. So in the same way, our earthly father has a responsibility to call out that identity. And now that we're here, we've spoken a lot about fathers and their sons. I want to speak just a bit about daughters so we don't get left out. But I just wanted to know from you guys, do you think men see the effect that this absence actually has on their daughters? And maybe you guys can also speak to, do you see what that is, and do you see what that shows up as? Because I mean, I think I've spoken so many times about broken families, but it's not just the sons, it's the other, it's daughters as well, it's mothers and sons as well. But now we're talking about being passed on from our fathers, so they're passing on what we've now spoken about to you guys. But what about to the girls, and what does that show up as, you know?
I'm giving you first.
I do see it, definitely. And hey, yeah, it shows up in so many different ways. Like, even so, I've got peers who are single mothers, and I've got peers who have never grown up with their dads, and it really like alters the perspective of one's like entire worldview, and they don't even know it, or they know it and they don't know what to do about it, right? So it's comes out in ways like seeking approval and like stepping out of character for things you'd never do, or things you think would I don't know, gain the appreciation of whichever men they have deemed worthy of trying to gain that appreciation. And it's just like totally out of character. Like, why are you acting this way? It's because, oh no, because that person likes it, so I need to do that. But it's ultimately seeking approval from a man, who has been chosen at that moment in time, because there wasn't a man earlier in life to say like, this is what a man is. Firstly, we're also just as flawed as you. Don't idealize us, please. You know, don't seek our approval. Don't, because they're also bad. Yeah, you know. And whilst me, if I'm your father in this scenario, have good intentions for you, there are other men who try to twist that, right? And there's a lot of women I've seen who go out looking for that approval and get all twisted up. Yeah.
Interesting. So much to unpack. Anyways, you guys continue.
And I think from the perspective of the father, maybe to the daughter, especially if you haven't spent the time understanding your emotions, you won't understand the gap you're creating for your daughter, who has all these emotions that she needs validation for. But for you, on that logical mind space, you're like, I've provided financially, I'm here, she has whatever she needs, she's good, but you're not catering to her emotional needs. So I think that's also a real gap that is felt even more by women than, say, sons. Yeah.
Well, I think the absent father, I think, affects everybody. A father has been given so much, responsibility by God. And that's why even it's the father that determines the sex of the child. You get?
Interesting.
So there's a lot of responsibility that lies with the father. But they don't really take that responsibility. And once you let go, once you create a vacuum, a lot of things now come in to fill that vacuum. And one of them that I seen or I see is validation. So a lot of girls seeking validation from other people because that validation of a father lacked. And a lot of girls who have present fathers will tell you how much their fathers validate them. Yeah, I see. Yeah, your dad will come, oh wow, you're looking nice, or he'll come home with something for you. Even the conversation that he has when you fall is so different from the one that he has with his son. Oh, don't worry, cry baby, you'll okay. So I think it's important, but wherever there's a vacuum and something comes to fill it, it's not always the best thing that comes in to fill that space. So I think we just have to be careful of that vacuum that we're creating, whether it's for a son or a daughter. Yeah. And also just to say it out there, a lot of people may be single parents for one reason or another, but I believe that you could find someone to have that role. Of course, there's God who's your father.
Yes.
So you could also build that, but having an earthly person to come and, take that role is, really important. Sorry to go back to the son, but the other day I was having a podcast with someone who owns a barber shop, and he was like, do you know these days a lot of people are brought by their mothers to the barber shop? I remember my first experience with my dad was the barber. And for a lot of guys, that's the thing. Even recently in the episode that we dropped for the father and son, one of the fathers said the moment he looked forward to was the day he could walk his son to the barber shop.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the absent father is causing a lot of drama in a family, because you see, even for the roles he's given, when he's absent, who's there to fill in those roles? And I applaud women that are doing that, but there's a little bit more responsibility that's put on a man, and I think that's why even the rib was taken to make a woman.
All right, Tupac, Pastor. But I think
I'm passionate about the boy child topic, so there's a lot of research I do on it.
Yes, I think one other thing that I picked consistently is, I think, let me start with Tupac. You mentioned how there's a lot of single parents out there, a lot of single mothers, to be honest. And you walk around and you meet a man with a surname that is a woman's name. Especially Nairobi. I don't know if it's just me, but like it could be anyone, and I feel like in those situations, what I see happen is the mother villainizing the father to her children. And yes, my perspective, and you can chip in. My perspective is, yes, this man either like rejected the family or abandoned the family or has hurt you or has done whatever it is, but villainizing this man who is your children's father makes them villainize him. For the men, I think that does a couple of things, but one, they never have anybody to look up to. Yes, a father could maybe not be present at home, but maybe you could still have a father-son relationship, so it almost doesn't allow them to have the opportunity to do that. For a woman, it makes them think or believe that a man will always be absent. And actually, there's no man who's ever showed up for me, and those are the kind of relationships you end up in. Those are the kind of people that you look for. You, again, don't have your identity. So you then end up becoming somebody for someone, because as you said, you want their validation. So I will be whoever you want me to be. You never
To
really
make sure you stay.
Exactly, to make sure you stay, because I'm scared of being abandoned or whatever. So I think mothers also have a role to play in ensuring that, yes, maybe ensuring that the father is not villainized to the point where there's no hope for any sort of relationship or hope for a man in general to be viewed differently. Because it's one thing to say that he did this, this, and this, but here are other examples of, or
Positive, yes.
I hate men,
Yes.
So I don't know what you guys think.
That was something I wanted to build on, actually. The villainization of men as a gender is also having a significant impact, because it's creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you've grown up hearing that men are trash, and it's been affirmed by your friends who've had negative experiences with men, it's been affirmed by your mother who's had a negative experience in her marriage or her relationship, of course you're going to believe this. So anytime you see anything that might validate that to a certain degree, you're going to expand on it and say, okay, that's, as opposed to it being an issue with this man that he can work on, it's an issue about all men that is insolvable. So taking that perspective, I think there's also a responsibility single mothers have, but also women, to see past their pain and not pass it on to the next generation.
Yes.
Yeah. I like what he said. See past your pain and not pass it on to the next generation. I think in that case, of the case that you've explained, I think a lot of parents are selfish. Yeah. Because personally for me, like as a woman, as much as you have a negative or toxic relationship with a man, the man has equal rights to the child. So denying that is selfish. Yeah. And for the man as well, like if you put a baby into this world, be present. Don't be selfish enough or choose yourself, because that's what we're seeing. A lot of people being selfish on both ends of the spectrum. So yeah, I just like to say, like, I think a lot of people need to stop being selfish and put themselves out of the box and think about, what does my child need? Yeah.
And then I was going to be a bit of a contrarian, but you've just begun the beginning of my point. And I think there are scenarios where you need to protect your child as well, right? If a certain person, whether man or woman, was a negative influence, you can't now not tell them the truth. Genuinely, if the guy was a bad guy, he was a bad guy, man. Like you need to say it, because ultimately, like if you don't warn your child, you're putting them in a position to be also taken advantage of later, right? So there needs to be that
balance.
Yeah, that balance, that realism a bit, to be like, once again, people are people. There are good people, there are bad people. There are people who can be both good and bad in the same minute, let alone life.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's all about context, honestly. Like if the guy was toxic, the guy was toxic. Let's remove him. And if you don't feel ready to find another person, at least allow your child the opportunity to see other people in different ways, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Anything remaining? Two more questions as we finish. The first one is, what do you want your legacy as a man to look like? As a father, as a whatever your idea or your dream of a man is, what would you want that legacy to look like? And I will say, for your son, potential son, and for your daughter, because I think those are two different things.
Okay, I'll start. So personally, I'm excited to be a girl dad.
Yeah.
We know.
But I think my legacy is, I have an inherent need to feel understood, which has made me passionate about narrative and storytelling, because that's how you become understood, is by being able to tell your own personal narrative, your own story. So I think my legacy would be to enable others to either see my story, read my story, witness my story, and find understanding in it, or for me to enable others to be able to tell their stories in a way that they can feel understood as well. Because I think that's the nexus of like true connection, is feeling understood.
That is so true. Any relationship is two-sided.
I think there's a wave of a new generation, and I think I've also been fortunate to be surrounded by men who are trying to do things differently, very intentionally creating spaces not just for themselves but for the men around them and the women around them. So to play an active role in the coming wave of men who are not scared to be in touch with their emotions, who can be there not just for their wives but for their daughters, sons as well, provide a positive example, I think. And that's also influenced largely by God and faith. So it's looking to him as the true father, and following his example, and then passing that on to your kids. That is what I want for me.
Well, legacy. I think for me, when I look at the legacy I'd like to leave, is, I think I'm already living slowly in that, through the space that, Just to Kick This a Blessing has created, and through the other spaces that through the plans of creating other spaces, within this year. But I think for me, it's to change the narrative for people, and especially the young man. For me, any young man that the platform or any platform that we speak on changes, I think is a legacy, because we don't know who that young man could become. So that legacy of changing a young man's life through storytelling, self-discovery, personal development, and then also, like David said, pointing them towards God. I think we all need a higher power to believe in.
Okay. And finally, as we wrap up, one thing that you would say to that 12, 13-year-old boy who maybe stumbled upon this video, and is currently maybe going through some of the things you went through at that age, what would you want to have been told?
Maybe I can go first. I tell the person that, failure is part of life. Yeah. You can't avoid it. You can't run away from it. It's an essential part of life. What I'll tell him is staying down is a choice. So please, please, please get up. The other thing I'll tell him is embrace the bad parts of your story. Don't be scared or don't be shy of them, The fact that you can package them and tell them inspires someone else.
That is true.
So don't be scared of, the dark side of you, because I think we're yin and yang. We have light and dark. So embrace the dark equally as you embrace the light. Yeah.
I think I'd say, as long as you've done your best, then you're enough. I think there's a lot of people out there who put a lot of effort into things or into anything, and it doesn't work out, and the failure becomes somehow a critique on their character, and it becomes an internal story to itself that because it didn't work out, it means I must inherently not be enough for it to ever work out, right? And the thing about trying your best is once you hit that limit, you're already getting better. So as long as you've done your best, you're enough. And as long as you keep doing your best, the results will change.
Not bad.
I think finally it's that life is a marathon, not a sprint. So there's, like Tupac and Tina have been saying, there's time to make mistakes and get past those. Don't identify yourself or package yourself based off of your failures. The failures help you learn and grow and get better. So having that holistic perspective helps change, and then building your identity around things that are larger than you. Don't place your identity on being the fastest. I mean, at that age, but things will come and go. So have that long-term perspective. Yeah.
Love that. I think those are all my questions. Do you guys have any questions for me on this topic?
What's your relationship with your dad?
Wow.
It's a good question.
My dad, my dad has taught me what it means to be loved unconditionally. My dad has shown up for me since, I guess, before I could remember. And he continues to do that every single day. And it's in the small things. It's in the flowers, in the dinners, in the words of encouragement, in the corrections, but still in love, allowing me to make my mistakes, but ensuring that he's made it clear that this is a mistake, but this is kind of how you move to the next level. I think, I wouldn't trade him for anything. And I think what that has done for me is it's allowed me to find my voice, find my identity, and not put that in someone else. It's almost like because of my relationship with my dad, I've been able to relate with my Heavenly Father, It's almost like there was something tangible that allowed me to then relate to something that was intangible. And I know not everyone gets that, but I'm very grateful that I have. So, yeah.
I think I also have a question.
Yes.
Is first of all, let me give context to the
Mhm.
audience.
Mhm.
For a lot of people who are watching this, it's Ciku who made me go back to recording the podcast. And initially, when we met and you told me to go back, you were so passionate about me speaking about to the young man and to the boy child. Even though I looked at my YouTube numbers and I was hesitant about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so why are you so passionate about that whole topic of the boy child and the young man?
Wow. Many reasons, but I think one is I think growing up, I grew up with people who grew up in families like mine. So I thought the present father, families together, all of that were like normal. And then I started, like, I got to high school and I'm starting to meet people and I'm like, what? Like, they're explaining to me their life stories and I'm like, this can't be real. Like, how? How is this happening? Why is this normal? It started becoming a thing. Like, at some point, I had no friends that had fathers. And I'm like, what? So people would come to my house and I began to realize that my house became a safe space for a lot of the people that I was friends with. And when I started to ask them questions why, they'd be like, it's peaceful. My dad will come home, say hi to my mom, they'll have a conversation. He'll come pick us up, like me and my friends, take us to dinner, take us, and they're like, I like being here because it gives me hope that I can experience something different from what it is that I've seen, what it is that my family or the generations of women in my family have experienced. So for me, my passion comes about in wanting to create space for hope to grow, for people to see that there is something else that is possible, and for the people that are doing it right to have a space to share, people that are doing it wrong to also have a space to share and be like, I know I'm doing it wrong, but I want to expose my children to something that is better. I think another one, obviously, is I am growing, getting older, and a lot of the women that I'm friends with are struggling to find men who would make what we think, I guess, is a good father or a good partner because they don't have models, not because they don't want to. Of course, that maybe there may be people who are not interested, but for the most part, there are no models. There are no spaces to speak. There are no spaces to be. This is the man I want to be. How do I become him? Those kind of don't exist. So that's where my passion comes from, wanting to see the family whole again. And I'm extremely grateful that it's something that I experienced. So maybe I have something to draw from. And so the passion is to like allow that to multiply or to see how I can help that. Yeah.
Very nice. I think one, I'd want to commend you for creating this space for men to speak and also helping the boy child. I wanted to ask, what role do you see women having in also uplifting that next generation of men?
Wait. Okay, I hope it's the last question. Women, I think I mentioned one, not villainizing the male species. Yeah. Balance, as Tino said, like, you can tell me that this person has done X, Y, and Z, and they may not be a good person, but that doesn't mean that that person can never exist. Doesn't mean that forgiveness is not a thing, just all of those things. So I think that would be one of the first things, like for women to almost create space for men to do better.
Yes.
You can't it's hard to expect someone to change when your expectation of them remains the same.
Yes.
So, and I think that only comes from having faith in God, because you're having faith in God to either change or transform or whatever it is, this person. So it's like, God, I'm trusting you to do this. So it's not every day I'm reminding them, but you did, but you can't, but it's, I also need to create space for that to happen, and also realize that they are humans. So there are things that will go wrong, but being able to forgive, being able to, I guess, draw lines and boundaries or whatever it may look like. But I think in general, what I am saying is I think women need to create space for men to do better. Yeah. That is it from me. Any last words?
Thank you so much for inviting us. Thank you so much for hosting us. And, just to finally say that is, to the audience listening out there is, no matter where you are, no matter what you go through, just to kick it is a blessing.
Love that. Watch his podcast, guys.
Just to kick it is truly a blessing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Love that.
Thanks again for this opportunity. Glad to be here.
Of course. Thank you guys for sharing, for being open, for being vulnerable. And I really do expect a lot from all of you. That's why you're here. But I also am saying that we're here to support you. And I'm extremely grateful that the people out there are going to have models like you to kind of show them where to go. Yeah. So, guys, that's the end of this episode. It was about the absent gap, the absent bridge, the absent bridge. I hope you enjoyed. My name is Ciku Mutahi. You have been my guest. Have a lovely rest of your day.